fans have often speculated about a showdown between Red Skull and Darkseid. A popular discussion on Comic Vine points out that, no matter the circumstances, Darkseid's overwhelming power would likely guarantee his victory. Today, we'll dive into the possibilities of what a fight between these two iconic villains might look like.
Computer, commence self-destruct sequence.
The reasons. A fight between Red Skull and Darkseid could happen for a bunch of reasons, mostly because of their huge egos and thirst for power. Marvel's Red Skull is always looking for ways to expand his influence, and if he found out about Darkseid's godlike abilities, like the anti-life equation or Omega beams, he'd definitely want to get his hands on that kind of power. Red Skull might think he could either trick DC's Darkseid into doing his bidding or steal the power for himself. This would lead him to challenge Darkseid head-on, convinced that he could outsmart or overpower the tyrant. But Darkseid's strength and intelligence would make it pretty much impossible for Red Skull to win with just his usual tricks. Darkseid's powers are way beyond anything Red Skull can handle. Another reason these two could clash is Red Skull's manipulation skills. He's a master at getting people and organizations to do what he wants, but messing with Darkseid's followers, like Darkseid or Granny Goodness, could easily backfire. If Red Skull tried to turn Darkseid's subordinates against him, Darkseid wouldn't stand for it. He doesn't tolerate disloyalty and would strike hard if he felt anyone was challenging his authority. Then there's the fact that the two have very different ideas about how the world should be ruled. Darkseid wants to control the universe, using the anti-life equation to wipe out free will and crush everything in his path. Red Skull, on the other hand, has a vision of world domination that's rooted in Nazi ideals, using fear and manipulation to get what he wants. If their goals ever clashed, Red Skull might see Darkseid as a rival who needs to be stopped, especially if Darkseid's plans got in the way of his own. Finally, if some bigger cosmic threat came along that threatened both of their ambitions, it could push them into a fight. Maybe Red Skull would feel like Darkseid was standing in his way, or maybe Darkseid would view Red Skull as a nuisance. Either way, the two would end up battling it out, with Red Skull's cunning and Darkseid's raw power going head-to-head. It would be a crazy matchup, but in the end, it would likely be a clash of ideas and abilities, with Darkseid's overwhelming might being the deciding factor.
You don't give up, do you?
The fight. The fight between Red Skull and Darkseid would be a real battle of brains versus brawn, with Red Skull using his smarts and tactics to try and get the upper hand, while Darkseid would just be crushing everything in his path with raw power. At first, Red Skull would probably try to outthink Darkseid. He's a master strategist, so he'd likely start by using his intellect to set traps, hack into Apocalypse systems, or maybe even use the Cosmic Cube if he has access to it. Red Skull's goal would be to throw Darkseid off balance, trying to catch him off guard before things get too intense. He's not about direct confrontations. He'd try to get inside Darkseid's head, maybe even trying to mess with Darkseid's followers like Darkseid or Granny Goodness to create some chaos among them. If Red Skull can make Darkseid's minions question their loyalty, it could cause a little confusion and buy him some time to land a surprise blow. Red Skull might use some energy weapons, traps, or even explosives to try to hit Darkseid where he's weakest. He is a guy who knows how to use his resources, so he'd try to exploit any potential weaknesses, maybe something magical or tech-based to mess with Darkseid's power. But Darkseid wouldn't be fooled for long. He's used to threats and he's always on high alert. As soon as he senses Red Skull's trying to manipulate things, he'd strike back hard. Darkseid would probably hit him with those Omega beams. Red Skull might dodge them at first, using his tech or thinking fast, but avoiding them for long would be a challenge. One wrong move and he could be done for. If Red Skull can't mess with Darkseid's minions or outsmart him with gadgets, he'll have to face Darkseid head-on. In that case, Red Skull's going to have to use every bit of his intelligence just to stay alive. He'd probably try to use the environment to his advantage, ducking behind cover, using any terrain he can find to avoid Darkseid's attacks. It would be a game of survival, with Red Skull trying to stay a step ahead and outwit the overwhelming power Darkseid is throwing at him. Throughout the battle, Red Skull would definitely try to play mind games, trying to get Darkseid to make a mistake or slip up. But Darkseid's not an easy one to fool. He's got a godlike ability to predict things and see through deception, so Red Skull's tricks wouldn't last long.
3/4 of the Earth is now the Cabal's to control.
The outcome. As the fight would go on, it would quickly become clear that no matter how clever Red Skull is, he'd be outmatched by Darkseid's sheer power. Red Skull would try his best to use his intellect and gadgets to gain the upper hand. He would likely manage to keep his distance at first, using energy weapons and traps to take a few shots at Darkseid. But every time Red Skull would gain a moment of advantage, Darkseid would retaliate hard. The Omega beams would come close more than once, and Red Skull would have to keep dodging them, knowing that if they hit him, it's game over. Red Skull, being the master manipulator, would try to get under Darkseid's skin by turning his followers against him. He'd hope to cause some infighting or confusion, thinking that if he could mess with Darkseid's control over them, he might get a chance to land a real blow. But Darkseid's grip over his minions would be rock solid. He wouldn't tolerate insubordination, and Red Skull's mind games would likely have no effect. This would only make Darkseid more focused, and Red Skull would start realizing that the more he tried to outsmart Darkseid, the harder it would get. When Red Skull's psychological tactics would fail, he would likely decide to go all in with a more direct approach, launching more aggressive attacks. He might try to get in close or hit Darkseid from behind, using his tech to target weak spots or break through Darkseid's defenses. But no matter what Red Skull would try, it wouldn't work. Darkseid would barely react to his attacks. Red Skull might land a few hits, but Darkseid would just take it and keep coming. Red Skull would begin to understand that his physical attacks wouldn't cut it. In a last-ditch effort, Red Skull might try to use the Cosmic Cube, hoping to twist reality itself to his advantage. He could try to freeze time, create illusions, or alter the battlefield entirely, figuring that if he could change reality, he might gain the upper hand. But even with the Cosmic Cube in his hands, he wouldn't be able to control that kind of power for long. Darkseid, being the cosmic powerhouse he is, would quickly shut down Red Skull's reality warping attempts, rendering the Cosmic Cube useless. Darkseid would unleash the full power of the Omega beams, and in a flash, they would rip through the battlefield, zeroing in on Red Skull. Red Skull would try to dodge, but he'd be too slow, too injured, and before he could react, the Omega beams would hit him. There'd be no escaping it, and Red Skull would be disintegrated in an instant. In the end, Darkseid would stand victorious. All of Red Skull's clever plans and manipulations would come to nothing, destroyed by the sheer might of Darkseid. The fight would conclude with Darkseid standing tall, unscathed, while Red Skull's ambitions would fade away into nothingness.
I could destroy you with a single blast of my Omega beam.
Red Skull might put up a fight with his brains and tactics, but when it comes down to raw power, Darkseid would totally crush him. Darkseid's on a whole different level. In a straight-up fight, Red Skull wouldn't stand a chance. Thanks for watching CBR. See you soon.